Okay, we're ready to go now. I'll hand over to our MC today, Adam Dorman.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. I might just get my screen up. Welcome, everybody. Good to see so many people here from various different places as well. Just bear with me 1 second. Like Carlos, I've just been through a recent OS upgrade, which is causing a bit of havoc here, but just bear with me. We'll get there shortly. All right, technical issues. Nothing like that to start. All right. Daniel, do you mind presenting? Apologies for this.
Yeah, sure. Let me just put it up again. No issues at all.
And I will probably just reset and jump off and jump back in a little bit later for the Kahoot, I think.
Yeah, you're doing the Kahoot. That's good. Yeah. All right, let me just share this now. And off we go. Hope you can see that. All good?
Fantastic. Thanks very much. So, yeah, once again, welcome everybody to the Melbourne MuleSoft Meetup for October. It's great to see so many people here from the wider community, and we appreciate your attendance tonight. Next, please. Got a jam-packed agenda tonight, so yeah, look forward to some great talkers. We've got the, on the platform at the moment, feel free, a lot of people have introduced themselves in the chat window, so feel free to ask questions, add comments there. We've got a fair few representatives from MuleSoft here in our partner network who can answer some questions. And we will be using Kahoot for the trivia a little bit later on. So as usual, there will be some questions relating to the content presented tonight to see if you're paying attention, as well as some abstract concepts that are unrelated to MuleSoft, in particular sport. I'm quite into sport, so hopefully there's a few sporty people out there as well. But yeah, stay tuned. There are some great prizes, and you can get your hands on some training vouchers and swag a little bit later as well. Okay, so today, yeah, you've got your regular meetup leaders, Daniel Soffner, who will be presenting a little bit later this evening, who's a strategic technical architect at MuleSoft, based here in Melbourne, and myself, by way of introduction, solution engineer. We are also joined by Carlos as part of our partner solution engineering team, who will be, part of the presentation with Andrew and Rubicon Red a little bit later as well. So I'll allow Carlos to introduce himself at that stage as well. So if you haven't already, as we sort of go along, please feel free to introduce yourself, especially if you're a newcomer. We do appreciate, the community that we have here as part of our meetup network. So let us know where you're from, a little bit about your background. It's a good place to network. I know it is a little bit more challenging trying to do this in a virtual setting, but we are appreciative of the fact that, we can still run these. We all sort of have shifted to the online and virtual world that we're in. We're becoming experts at it now, I guess, in Melbourne, being the most locked down city in the world. But yeah, feel free to introduce yourself. I think it is all about, first of all, understanding the latest and greatest, some announcements from us and sharing some tips and tricks, but also about networking and understanding the community out there, you know, and you can bounce ideas off each other as well. All right, so in terms of the agenda, I'll run through a few announcements and updates from a MuleSoft perspective. But the most important thing are our topics today. We've got the pleasure of being joined by Andrew Dorman today from Rubicon Red, who will take you through the Mule 3 to Mule 4 migration process. And if you haven't heard of the MMA, as we call it, or the Mule Migration Assistant, he'll take you through, you know, how that actually comes together and what options you have available there around some best practices. And then we'll hand over to Daniel Soffner, who will take us through a newly released capability in terms of the Anypoint platform and the support for AWS Transit Gateway. I know that a lot of people have been requesting this capability for a long time, so I'm sure a lot of you are very excited to hear what the announcement is from that perspective and what it means to you as customers. And then last but not least, we'll run through the trivia, which is always a bit of fun to cap things off, so please hang around. And as mentioned earlier, there are some prizes to give away as well. Okay, so in terms of the announcements, I don't want to steal too much thunder from the other guys this evening, but I've got a few things to run through that are sort of top of mind. If you hadn't heard, if you've been sort of hiding under a rock somewhere, you know, we are obviously part of the Salesforce family and the Salesforce organization, and we've just had Dreamforce, which is a marquee event from a Salesforce perspective. If you weren't able to join, feel free to jump on, you know, the website, check out, you know, some of the replays and the information that was presented around Dreamforce. If I can suggest anything, it would be the keynote from a MuleSoft perspective, which was, you know, the topic was integrate everything, automate anything. I mean, there's some announcements there around our acquisition and moving into the RPA space as well. But yeah, feel free to jump on and capture and get up to date with some of the announcements from Dreamforce. MuleSoft Hackathon. So wanted to announce this, if you hadn't heard of this already, pretty exciting hackathon that's been announced. You can jump on mulesoft.devpost.com to register today. This is running through until November. So it's a good chance for you to put your heads together, you know, show off your skills as well. So again, it's something that is important around the community. There are some offers available there as well, but also a chance, you know, the mentorship program is available there as well to help you create your best work. All right, I'm not going to spend much time talking about the Transit Gateway support. It was an announcement of something that's recently released, but I'm not going to steal Daniel's thunder. So hang around, please, until the end of the meetup, and you'll hear some a really good run through of all of the details associated with this release from Daniel Soffner. All right, some new and enhanced connectors. As you can see here, we've got a fair list of recently released connectors. So we've got the Amazon Redshift and AWS Lambda, all the way through to MQTT, which is something that a number of customers have been asking for, moving into the IoT and OT space. And also we've seen some enhancements as well. So one thing that's important from a connector perspective is that lifecycle and making sure that we are, you know, incorporating feedback from our customers and the community around, you know, enhancing these connectors and making sure that they are meeting the needs of our customers moving forward as well. Anypoint Runtime Fabric. So this went GA 12th of August, version 1.10. So this is providing a flexible way to configure your ingress for RTF for any of those RTF users, or if you think about moving into the Runtime Fabric deployment model on self-managed Kubernetes. So this is part of our ongoing evolution, I guess, of moving into you know, being able to self-manage your own infrastructure and being able to apply certain characteristics across the life cycle from a deployment standpoint. So this is always enhancing, and it's an area that we're going to continue to focus on as well. Multi-factor authentication. If you haven't heard about this capability, or if you haven't enabled it in your platform yet, we strongly recommend you do so. It is a very quick and easy process. I'm sure if you haven't, you'll continually be notified when you're trying to log in that you should enable this as well. Security is really important, so another reason to add multi-factor authentication to your instance. Mulesoft Code Labs. So this is pretty exciting, actually. If you haven't heard of this, feel free to jump onto that URL, note it down, mulesoft.labs.dev. What you'll see here is a whole bunch of guided labs. Okay, so there is a wide range of different labs and run-throughs and tutorials that you can actually go through from a hands-on perspective that show you how to build out a lot of capabilities. So again, it's another great asset that is really helpful for the community, and as a practitioner, it can get you started and up to date with some new use cases really quickly as well. Now, there is the online meetup group. So as an extension of just our Melbourne meetup, there are a range of different virtual meetups that are available. And these are run on a weekly basis. So feel free to jump on and check out the online meetup group, subscribe to those if you haven't already. And, you've got the ability to go back and look at, previous sessions on YouTube as well. If there are some topics of interest there you want to take more of a deep dive on. Once again, Friends of Max, we tend to talk about these, I think, at every meetup, but again, a great tool to have in your tool belt. If you want to explore different capabilities in a bite-sized sort of snippet or video, these are a great way to get across different areas that are in the platform or different ways of doing things. So again, giving that a bit of a plug. If you're not using that already, feel free to explore that. Jump on YouTube and check it out. And we've seen what's the latest and greatest in that space. These are getting updated quite regularly, so you can see a whole bunch of new videos that were released there. Those 7 were across the last 2 months, actually. And then you can sort of see that the top videos that are sort of polling in September. So introduction of batch processing, secure connectivity to Salesforcing using OAuth JWT is another one as well. And what's really interesting is the 5th one on that list is Mule Migration Assistant overview, which we'll be covering this evening as well. Okay, so what's next? Feel free, if you're going to tweet, use that hashtag Mulesoft Meetups. We are a community, and we always value our members, and not just from our standpoint, but feel free to promote this and share this with your colleagues, your network, people that are using MuleSoft or are interested in MuleSoft, or anyone who's sort of in the integration and API space. Feel free to share the love and bring them along. The more the merrier, and everybody's welcome here. So the other thing is, please fill out the feedback. We do value your feedback. We want to make these sessions as meaningful as possible to you. We are here for you. So yeah, provide your feedback, and we'll continue to tailor these and make them as meaningful as possible. And the next Melbourne meetup will be in December. I know it will be a busy time of year, but we'll try and get that in probably as early as we can in December. Again, we would love to see you all back here for that meetup then. All right, and with that, I will hand over to Andrew Dorman. Thanks again, Andrew, for joining us this evening from Rubicon Red. And I'll hand over to Andrew to take it away with the Mule 3 to 4 migration assistant.
Thanks, Adam. Let me just share my screen. Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Today, we wanted to take you through an experience that we've had with a project in migrating a customer from Mule 3.5, it was quite an old version, to Mule 4, and some of the lessons learned that we've got along from that. So for context, Carlos is going to run us through the MuleSoft versions and the different support that there is for those. I'll then take you through the different strategies that are available to you as you approach migrating your applications from Mule 3 to 4, as well as the different considerations that need to be taken into consideration for those migrations. We'll provide a high-level overview of the process that we took and the options available there. And we'll wrap it up with some of the lessons that we learned and things we might do a bit differently, as well as the benefits that we found from the Mule Migration Assistant. Over to you, Carlos.
Thank you, Andrew. Can you hear me well? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Andrew. As mentioned, my name is Carlos. I am a partner engineer. I am based in Melbourne, in Victoria, Australia. And just before I pass it on again to Andrew to take us through the important considerations around migrating from version 3 to 4, I just want to share with you some very important reminders. The first one and most important is that Mulesoft 3.8 will reach its end of life on the 16th of November this year, which is basically like in a couple of weeks. And Mulesoft 3.9 already reached the end of standard support earlier this year. It was on the 20th of March, 2021. Right now, 3.9 is on an extended support, and it will go for another couple of years until the 20th of March, 2024. And there are a lot of distinctions between what you get out of a standard support and an extended support. So I'm just going to put in the chat right now a link that is going to give you more information about what you can achieve right now with 3.9 and what you cannot. So I recommend that you have a look at this later tonight or whenever you can. And then on the next slide, Andrew, one of the most common questions that we get all the time is what is going to happen with those applications that are currently running in Cloud Hub that are, like a version 3, 3.8 or 3.9. So let's go through some of the most common considerations. So if you have an application running version 3.8 in Cloud Hub, what will happen after it reaches end of life on the 16th of November? Well, basically the answer, it will be stopped. It will be stopped by MuleSoft, and it won't give the opportunity to be restarted. Obviously, you are not going to be able to deploy new applications that are 3.8 or redeploy that application that is already running on 3.8. But I think that the most important aspect here is that anything after the 16th of November is going to be stopped, and there is not going to MuleSoft is not going to provide support of any kind for 3.8. So now for 3.9, can we continue running existing applications in Cloud Hub that are 3.9? The answer is yes, because it is still on an extended support, and it will be on the 2024, as I said. Can you restart those applications? The answer is yes. And also you can redeploy updated versions of those applications that are already running. So with this, I mean that if you are applying a patch on an existing 3.9 application that is running in Cloud Hub, for sure you can redeploy it. But as of today, you cannot deploy new applications that are 3.9 on Cloud Hub. And if you think about it, this makes sense, because why would you create something new that is on a version that is on extended support? So with that, I think that is sensible to stop people from deploying new applications on an old version. And this is the reason why it is very important to listen what Andrew has to tell us, because basically everything that is end of life will, anything 3.8 will be end of life in a couple of weeks, and you should basically have a migration plan very soon if you are running anything on 3.9. And with this, I will pass it on to you again, Andrew.
Thanks, Carlos. So as I mentioned, this project that we were on, the customer was using a Mule application of version 3.5, which was very old. It was the point where they couldn't even restart their application. So there's some level of urgency around their need to migrate. But when we approached this, we had to really start at the beginning and work out, well, which migration strategy did we want to use? And in doing this, there's a couple of aspects you need to look at. Those involve like what's the strategic elements of the application or the technology aspects or the quality of service that you want to look at. So if you look at the first strategy, that's more around migrating as is. So for some applications, their value and function may be well known. They do what they need to do, and the way they do it fulfills the requirements. They may be the sort of application that doesn't really provide the most innovative or differentiating capability in an organization, but it's just needed to run the organization. For these applications, it's probably fine just to migrate them as is. No changes to the functionality, no changes to the architecture or the technology methods employed. Just the aim is simply to migrate it from 3 to 4 and get it done as quickly and as painlessly as possible. The other sort of way of looking at it is maybe taking the opportunity to enhance, extend, or re-architect that application. So when you reevaluate it, does it still, determine if it's still fit for purpose? Could it be extended to provide additional business benefit? Does it make sense to adapt or change the technology choices that were made years ago and incorporate some new methods, effectively extending the life of the application and recouping more of your investment? For example, if you've got a SOAP-based service, maybe you could provide REST-based interfaces or take advantage of some more streaming capabilities for the payload processing. It might be worth re-architecting the application to incorporate the lessons learned since it was first developed. When we first start developing things, we don't know everything we need to know, and we might make some poor choices that we then have to live with for a long time. So can we make it more stable, more reliable, supportable, performant? The re-architecting in this phase can also make it easier to adopt new technologies without having to kind of bolt it on or jerry-rig it or kind of force it in place in an awkward manner. Also, when you evaluate the application against the strategic direction of your organization, find out whether there are any other opportunities to extend it and enhance the APIs for other digital experiences. Maybe there's more customer-focused APIs you could provide out of it, or maybe the adoption of new channels between customers and partners and organizations to take your investment and repurpose it a little bit and get more mileage out of it. Once you've done this, the next question that you really face is, well, how are we actually going to migrate this application, whether it's as is or re-architected? And for most of the time, it's been a manual redevelop. So you open up Anypoint Studio, start from scratch and start your application afresh. And this is the way it was until around 2018 when MuleSoft released the Mule Migration Assistant, which is a great way to automate the process of taking that application from Mule 3 to Mule 4. For our project, we decided to adopt the Mule Migration Assistant for reasons we'll go into in a little bit later. So what is the Mule Migration Assistant? Well, it's an open source command line migration tool developed by MuleSoft that provides a level of automation in taking the application from Mule 3 to Mule 4. It can greatly reduce the amount of time you need to perform the upgrade. However, it's very important to note it is not designed to migrate 100%. How much you need to manually change yourself depends upon the age of the application and how many customizations you've put in and the types of things you've got. But there's so many different scenarios that you can do with integration and a powerful platform like this that an automation tool can't cater for them all, and it can't make decisions around your intention between certain things. The Mule Migration Assistant generates a report at the end, and it details all of the issues that it encountered and things that you need to then manually go and do. But importantly, it provides links to further information as well as the documentation around those particular things, which makes it very easy to go through and make decisions around how you're going to approach those issues that were found. What I really love, though, is including, in addition to the report, it also updates the code and puts comments in the code with all of those relevant information about what the error was and the link to the solutions. So in our case, we had one big application from the customer, but we had multiple people working on the project. And instead of having to come together with complicated spreadsheets or issue tracking, trying to work out who's tackling which issue, we could simply just use the code. Go through the code, someone picks it up and starts fixing things. And once you've fixed it, remove the comments, and you've got a great way of tracking what's going on. You never lose context with what's happening. The Migration Assistant is designed to support Mule 3.8 and 3.9, but it can still be used on older versions. However, you might find there's more things you need to manually address with these older versions, and that's something that we did find as well using it on a 3.5. So what are those common things that you might need to address? So anywhere where you've used a deprecated processor or component, for example, message filters, poll, transform, etc., you're going to need to go through and put in new components in there and use the new constructs. Any constructs that don't directly translate from Mule 3 to Mule 4, you're also going to need to look at. And again, splitters and aggregators is a good example of that. There are no splitters in Mule 4, and the aggregators in Mule 4 have very different behavior to what they did in Mule 3. So it can't just be an automated swap in, swap out. You need to kind of spend the time to understand what's going on and find suitable replacements. While the Mule Migration Assistant does convert some Mule expression language to DataWeave, it doesn't necessarily do it for procedural scripts or some more complicated areas. So if you've got lots of Mule expressions and lots of procedures in there, that's an area where you're going to need to spend a bit of time and refactor that. The other areas that we found that came up were things such as inbound and outbound connector properties or attachments. Just needed some quick fixes to set those to the right values. Once you've kind of got through all of that and you understand what the Mule Migration Assistant can and can't do for you, the next step is to go through the 5 steps of the migration process that we found quite useful. The first step is understanding the application. And while on the surface of it, that may seem quite obvious that you need to understand what's going on and what it's trying to achieve, but you need to understand how it's actually doing it and the reasons why it was constructed in a certain way when dealing with these applications. And part of that is they can be written a long time ago. The people that wrote them may not be in the teams anymore, or if it's a third party, they may no longer be engaged. And even if the people who wrote them are still there, it may not be in the forefront of their mind. And it's worth spending the time just going back and revisiting that and making sure you really understand the why as well, because they're the little things that might trip you up. In reviewing the application, it's really important to look at some of those things that you know that the Mule Migration Assistant doesn't do. Have an understanding of what sort of Groovy scripts you've got. Are they small, complex? Are they lots? Not many. Same with the Mule expression languages. Also look out for if your Groovy scripts import Java classes, especially if you don't control the sources of those Java classes, really look into that. On our project, we found that we were calling other Java classes that we needed to get more up-to-date versions of, simply because we'd changed version of Java. And we didn't control that source or have that source. And we've ran into lots of problems where we couldn't actually get that code to then run properly because we didn't have it. Once you've got the understanding, the next step is quite a straightforward one, and that's to run the Mule Migration Assistant. It's a command line utility. You simply point it at where your source code is and say, yep, please run this, and put it over here for my version 4, and it goes away and does that. Easy peasy. Once you've done that, the next step is to address the quick fixes. A quick scan of the report will help you identify things that are quite easy to change. There might be the one-liners, or changing variable accesses, or even simple as removing redundant code. In the migration process, that may no longer be required. Again, the amount that you've got will depend upon the age of your application and the different capabilities and functions that you've used. For us, we found a good portion of the code could just be deleted because it was no longer relevant. Step 4 is to research alternative constructs. And again, this ties into what we were talking about before with things that don't directly translate between Mule 3 and Mule 4. And this is where having the understanding of what your application's doing and why it's doing that is really, really important when you go ahead and select the replacement pieces. We found that because the understanding in the organization we're working with was quite low, to almost non-existent, we spent a fair bit of time just trying to understand why the application was doing things certain ways to make sure that when we did the upgrade, we selected the correct types of components and ended up with the correct results. Once you've done that, the final bit and you're on the home stretch is simply to conduct the post-migration tasks. And these are quite well documented with a Mule Migration Assistant. But these are the things such as some of your Mule expression language conversions to Dataweave might need a bit of tinkering with, or again, you're looking at the connector properties and the inbound and outbound session properties, etc. There may be some minor syntax changes as well for accessing variables that has changed between Mule 3 and Mule 4. We found taking this approach really gave us the right level of visibility into what was going on, and also to make sure we didn't miss anything as we went through the process. I have here an example of the report that the Mule Migration Assistant gives us. And as you can see, it lists out all of the files and resources in that project and the number of things that it's found. So you can get a very quick sense of where your trouble points are and where you need to focus your attention. We can drill into those, and we can see that for each issue, it provides us with the detail of what the problem was, the links to the documentation, as well as the exact snippet of code that caused this issue. And again, all that information is embedded in the code as comments, making it very easy to debug and troubleshoot or fix up the problems as the case is. So what did we learn going through this process of using the Mule Migration Assistant? Well, I think the first one that we learned was being forewarned is forearmed. Understanding what the Mule Migration Assistant will and won't do for you is really, really important, because a lot of decisions that you make will stem on from that, whether it's going to be a quick and easy win just to migrate it as is, or whether the migration as is still going to take a lot of time, and you might as well do the re-architect and get some of the other benefits of doing that. Also, understanding that will help you to be able to categorize your applications. Work out which ones require little investment, which ones are going to take a little bit more time. That can influence not only your scheduling and resourcing, but you might decide to group a lot of the easier ones together, ship them out the door, and then slow down the pace a little bit to make sure that you're focusing on the more complicated ones or the more invested ones, and getting those right before you go forward. I think one of the big things that we learned was, in terms of technology, things change, and I think it's worth spending the time to take a proof of concept and get one of your applications migrated properly first. And the reason for that is, in integration, we connect two things, often to enterprise applications or different technologies. And if your application hasn't been touched in a long time, your Mule application, I mean, you might find that the things you're interacting with have also changed. So you take the opportunity to upgrade the connector. In our case, we were integrating with NetSuite, and we upgraded to the latest version of the NetSuite connector, sorry. What we discovered was, even though the connectors are great, they're not always perfect, depending who's written them. And some of the features that we needed to use weren't necessarily working in our favor in the latest version. And we had to keep downgrading the connector until we found one that actually worked the way we needed it to. The problem that we faced was everyone was discovering this for themselves and discovering it multiple times. And if we'd done the proof of concept structure first, we would have solved it once and for everyone and saved ourselves a fair bit of time. We also found that the way that the adapter wanted information passed to it changed just ever so slightly. And again, that learning curve was repeated upon everyone, and it would have been a lot simpler if we'd just done one once. So the Mule Migration Assistant provides an accelerated path for taking your Mule 3 application to Mule 4. Not only does it reduce the risk associated with having to rewrite everything from scratch, but it also makes sure that everything is brought across. Nothing is left behind. There's too many cases where you think you understand an application, you go and rewrite it from scratch, but there's things that you've missed. And it's only when you get to the testing or at the very end and people say, well, it's not doing this or it's not doing that, that you discover there's something that you didn't quite understand properly. Bringing everything across forces you to confront that, either when the migration assistant can't migrate it properly, or you've got to do some tinkering. You are forced to think about it and make sure that you've catered for that, even if it's declaring, well, that's no longer relevant, or no, actually, this is really important. We need to make sure we cater for this. So in that sense, it was really valuable in terms of a quality of product and making sure that the end result was what we wanted. The Mule Migration Assistant also takes on many of the repetitive tasks associated with migrating the app. and frees up the developers to focus on the very valuable knowledge-driven steps and move on to more efficient and productive things. So in that sense, it was a really good time saver too, without having to worry about just churning out boilerplate code. So, do you need help with your migrations? If so, we've got a blog on our website that goes through the migration approach and the strategies that we've got. We can also review your application and see if we can help you migrate your MuleSoft to Mule 4. And if you'd like to reach out to us, please feel free to reach out onto our website, send us an email, or if you want, you can book in a meeting with us and we can have a chat about how we can help you. So Carlos, I might throw it open now. Are there any questions out on the chat?
I think I answered all of them, but if there is still anything, or if you still have questions, feel free to keep putting in the chat, and I'll make sure to answer all of the questions.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Carlos.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks very much, Andrew and Carlos. That was fantastic. And thanks for answering those questions as well. As Andrew mentioned, if you do have questions, feel free to keep using the chat and we will monitor those and get back to you on any outstanding questions. Now, up next, we have the man himself, Daniel Soffner, who'll be taking you through an exciting topic around the Anypoint platform and AWS Transit Gateway. So I don't know if I can pump it up much more. I know this has been a long time coming, so I'll hand over to you, Daniel, and you can take it away from here.
Thanks, Adam. Hope you can hear me and see the screen as well. Cool, thanks. All right, I will spend the next 25 to 30 minutes to talk about a new capability on our platform, support for AWS Transit Gateway. I'll do first a bit of an overview about what AWS Transit Gateway is, for those of you who haven't worked with it yet. It's only a couple of years old, so might be new for some of you. I will then talk a little bit about what it means in the context of MuleSoft and the Anypoint platform. And then I'll do a demo, a live demo, where I will create a Cloud VPC and connect it to an existing AWS Transit Gateway. And looking at the time, that should hopefully not take more than 15 minutes. Let's see whether the demo gods will be in my favor or not. Okay, so let's start with the basics first. As you know, in Cloud Hub, what you can do is you can create a VPC, a virtual private cloud, that is essentially a dedicated space in Cloud Hub. So you as an organization can deploy your applications on there. Within a VPC, you get a dedicated range of IP addresses, specifically to your MuleSoft organization within an AWS region, right? As you know, Cloud Hub runs on AWS underneath the covers. So once you have a VPC, you can deploy your Mule applications into workers inside of that VPC, and an internal IP address is assigned within the address space. So why would you create a VPC? So first of all, customers can control what internal and external resources can access workers in a VPC, so they're protected. And also, customers can use a VPC to connect it to other VPCs, or more importantly, to their on-premise applications. So how can that be done? And again, if you've worked with MuleSoft a little bit, you'll probably know this as well. So far, there have been 3 options to connect a VPC to another environment. First one is through a simple VPN connection. You create a private gateway in Cloud Hub, a virtual private gateway. You create a customer gateway in your on-premise data center, and you connect that through your VPN. All right, that's standard Anypoint. Or you can use DC, Direct Connect, again, underneath the covers an AWS capability that you can use sort of as a router to connect the Cloud Hub VPC to your on-prem data center. And if you are already using AWS and you already have VPCs in your AWS account and you want to connect that to a Cloud Hub VPC, you can use VPC peering for that. Now you see what's wrong with this picture. These are all point-to-point connections between the Cloud App VPC and all these other environments. And as we know, point-to-point is definitely not a good architectural pattern. Also, the other problem here is that only one of those three options is essentially self-serve, right? If you want to use VPC peering or direct connect, you would have to engage our support team. Now, they operate very quickly. They're a great team, but it's not self-serve. Now, thankfully, AWS has helped us in that respect. And about 3 years ago, they released a technical capability called a transit gateway. So as you can see here, it looks quite a bit different to a point-to-point connectivity. It is actually a sort of a classic hub and spoke solution, right? AWS transit gateway in the middle, and now you can essentially connect each VPC or an on-prem data center through VPN to that central AWS transit gateway. It really reduces the complexity of your network. It puts an end to complex peering relationships because it acts essentially as a cloud router. Each new connection is only made once, namely to that transit gateway. The other point is it's managed by AWS, so it is a single network object. It is highly available and scalable. It supports transitive routing, so you can hook up different transit gateways together and thereby creating a global network, essentially. If you have, for example, very different regions in your AWS account and very different applications in those regions. Now, what's important is a transit gateway is always aligned to a region, right? So you can create a new transit gateway within a region and connect all of the other assets like our VPCs in that region to it. But you can allow peering with different regions, so you can connect different transit gateways together. So that's what it looks like, essentially, from an architectural point on pattern. So a complex organization may have 3 different regions. They put an AWS transit gateway in each of these regions. They connect their local VPCs to it. And then if they want to exchange data between the regions, they create attachments between the transit gateways and then creating that global network, right? So classic hub and spoke model supports inter-region peering, and for larger organizations, but even also for smaller ones that operate or may operate in different regions, the network architecture gets quite a bit simplified. Now, what have we announced? So what we rolled out 3 weeks ago is just simply the capability to connect a MuleSoft Cloud App VPC to an existing AWS transit gateway, right? So AWS transit gateway is not a MuleSoft product. We're just adding support for it. So we're essentially adding a 4th option, apart from VPC peering, direct connect and VPN, a 4th option to connect your VPC to an existing environment. It's fully self-serve, and again, you'll see that in the demo, and it essentially simplifies connectivity. We had a lot of customers ask us for that capability. We worked very closely with AWS to make it happen, and now it's available. So if you go into your Cloud App account in your platform, you log in, you will see Transit Gateway already enabled for you in there. So that's what it looks like. You have your Cloud App VPC there on the left-hand side. You would create a so-called attachment to an AWS Transit Gateway, and thereby then be integrated into anything else that is connected to that transit gateway as well. Again, keep in mind, it has to run in the same region. So in this case, the blue flag, let's say it's the blue region, it's the Sydney region. You can only connect a Cloud App VPC that is located in the blue region to a transit gateway that is also located in the blue region. Again, you can do cross-region or inter-region pairing. That is possible. So a customer has a transit gateway in the blue region and one in the green region. They can connect the two through an attachment and then connect the Cloud App VPC, which is also located in the blue region, to the upper one here. And then pretty much it can be integrated into the whole network. that's what the interregion or cross-region pairing, that's where it comes in really handy. Now, the most important question, how much does it cost, right? If you do have an existing entitlement, a subscription to Anypoint, it is included in there. So you may remember that for a base subscription of Anypoint, you get up to 4. Now we renamed that, so it is now called network connections and not normal VPN entitlements. And you can use one of those 4 network connections to either connect via VPN or to a transit gateway, right? So again, as long as you still have network connections available in your subscription, you can use, or you can start using the connection to transit gateway straight away. It doesn't cost you anything more. Now, if you still prefer to use VPC peering or direct connect, that will remain unchanged, right? That's still supported. But even AWS is saying that they suggest to their customers to use transit gateway for all the networking needs. So it's our recommendation as well to make use of that integration. Okay, so that's enough slides, I guess, for now. Let's do a demo. And again, the demo will be relatively straightforward. I did a little bit of pre-work, so I created 2 VPCs in AWS, VPC A and VPC B. I also created a transit gateway already, simply because of timing. Creating transit gateways and attachments can take a little bit longer. So we do have 2 VPCs that are connected to a transit gateway. I created the attachment. So what are we going to be doing now is create a VPC in Cloud Hub and connect that VPC to the existing transit gateway. Again, it's fully self-served. It is very, very easy to do. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. Okay. Right. Let's first have a look in the AWS account. So that's pretty much my AWS account. In that AWS account, we currently have 2 VPCs. Let's go over there. A little bit slow here. Right, here we go. We've got our 2 VPCs that are available, VPC A and VPC B. And if I go down to Transit Gateway, that's the one that I created a little bit earlier. That is available and running as well. And after creating the Transit Gateway, I already created 2 attachments. Attachment A that points to VPC A, and attachment B that points to VPC B. So that's essentially what you see here on the right-hand side. Now the requirement is to create a VPC in Anypoint and connect that as well. So as I mentioned before, now when you go into Anypoint here on the left-hand side, you see a new entry point on transit gateways where you can create them. But before we create a transit gateway, we need a VPC. So in my environment, I don't have any VPC yet. So let's just create one. Again, very important because I just click back here now, we're in the Sydney region now in AWS. So we have to create a VPC also in the Sydney region. In order to connect to that, we're doing a default site arrange. In this case, I want to connect that to the sandbox environment. Okay, and in this case, I just have a sort of a main org and no additional business groups. So I will sort of leave everything as default and create the VPC. Hopefully that does not take that long. So next thing we want to be doing is pretty much going into Cloud Hub in this new menu point we have and and create a transit, or actually attach the transit gateway to that. Right, we've got that here. So that's been created here, Mule VPC. Next step is now to go into transit gateways and add to it. Again, we're not creating one. We've created one already, but we're adding it to it. Okay, so of course, now what's important, we will see a bit of a song and dance now between the Anypoint environments and the AWS environment. We're going to be creating things in Anypoint, which you have to confirm in AWS, right? So it's really critical that when you do that, you have admin rights for both systems, right? So you need to be an admin in that AWS environment as well. Good, let's check this out. All right, so add transit gateway. I'm calling this now Mule, let's call it Meetup, just to show that this is, I haven't prepared anything before. So it's now 8/6/19. So a bit of a timestamp here as well, and transit gateway. Again, we need to specify where it is located. Now, obviously, our transit gateway is located in the Sydney region as well. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to sign into AWS. And first of all, we have to create a resource share. So through a resource share in Resource Access Manager, you can essentially, what you can do is share AWS resources that you create in one account and that you want to share with other accounts. So that's what we need first, right? So we're going to create a resource share. Let's call it, let's give it a name. New resource share. What we have to specify now is which resource do we want to share, right? And we want to share a transit gateway. So we select transit gateway. Let me zoom into this a little bit, right? So you can share other resources, but we want to share that particular transit gateway, the Mule TGW that I created a little bit earlier. And now we have to specify which AWS account should get access to that transit gateway, right? So now we have to go back to Anypoint, and in that description, as you can see here, we have the AWS account ID for MuleSoft, right? That's the one we want to copy, and we want to copy that into the principal section and add it. Okay, so we've added now the AWS account ID for MuleSoft as a principal, so that it would allow access to the transit gateway. All right, so we created that. So that's the first step. Now we go back to Anypoint, right? Once we've done that, we're good to go, and we click on Next. Now, once the resource share in AWS is created, we need to tell the Anypoint platform what the resource share ID and the owner ID is. Right? So for that resource share, we got a resource share ID, which we're going to copy. Oops, I forgot the F here. All right. I'll make sure that we copy and paste it correctly. That's how errors happen. So, and the owner ID as well. So that's the essentially the owner AWS account ID. We'll copy that in as well. Okay. So now what we're doing is we're adding that. And now essentially what is happening underneath the covers is that both of the AWS accounts, the one for the Anypoint platform and my own AWS account, are connecting to each other for the first time. And as we can see here, our transit gateway is now connected to the transit gateway that I created earlier. Just to show here, it starts with 0F2. If I go back now to my transit gateway, the ID starts with 0F2 and ends in AE7. So we are connected to the right AWS Transit Gateway, also in the right region. That's good. Now, next thing is we need to attach a VPC, right? So the platform is now connected, but now the Mule VPC that I created earlier needs to be connected as well. So we only have one. That's easy. Click on that. And next. Good. So what's happened now? I explained earlier the way VPCs are connected to AWS is through a so-called VPC attachment. So the attachment connects a VPC to a transit gateway. So what just happened was a new transit gateway attachment was created in my own target application or AWS account rather. I'm going to refresh this now. So that could take a little bit longer, right? Let's start this page again here. So we should find another attachment now, but one that hasn't been accepted yet and is pretty much not active yet. Well, it's a bit slow here now. Let's try it here again. Well, it doesn't show up yet. That's fine. It can take a little bit of time until, you know, that sort of has gone through. What do we have here? Okay, so that takes a bit of time. That's fine. Let's check the questions. Have there been any questions here?
Daniel, there was one that I think Carlos answered around the ability from Anypoint to monitor the transit gateway. So Carlos has sort of said that, you know, you can see the health of the attachment of the transit gateway, but being an AWS product, most of the monitoring will be in AWS side of things. And in addition to that, there was also a question, if for any reason the transit gateway goes down in region, what is the status of the attachments?
Mm-hmm. Well, so Transit Gateway again is an AWS run and managed environment. It's one of those that is really highly scalable and available. Of course, it can still always go down, and then the attachments would still be in the system but would not be accessible. But AWS has created the Transit Gateway as a really highly scalable network, almost like a network appliance in a way. That makes it less likely to go down, although, of course, it can happen. Anything can go down, even Facebook, as we've learned.
Perfect.
Okay, actually, that is the attachment here. I thought that was a different one, but our attachment is straight here. And as you can check here, we had the other two for VPC-A and VPC-B. This one is pending acceptance. Now, we want to make sure that we accept the right one. So here you can have a look at the resource owner ID. So that's the one that points to the MuleSoft platform. So it starts with 494. Always makes sense to compare that, because if you have a complex environment, you may have more than one transit gateway and more than one attachment. So this is the correct one. It's sort of pending acceptance. What we want to do now is accept that attachment. Now we can do as well. So this is pending. We would certainly rename that. So especially when you have a more complex environment, that's the one that points to the cloud of VPC. So that's done as well. So that can take a little bit as well, because now, of course, what AWS is doing is communicating with Cloud Hub again and saying, yeah, all right, that attachment is accepted. We now have connectivity between that AWS account and our MuleSoft account. Right, let's wait here a bit. Any other questions? Yeah, I think we covered those two that were there. Please, if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. Is the platform use of Transit Gateway only for supporting VPC peering or also connecting to VPNs? So in the context of MuleSoft and the Anypoint platform, you would use it to connect VPCs essentially, right? But you can use a Transit Gateway to connect to on-prem applications or on-prem systems using VPN. So that is supported as well, right? All right, so that's available now. There's another question. I'm going to address that in a minute. Okay, so we've done all of that. We've accepted it. And now what should happen in a minute, this message should change from this VPC is not attached to it being attached. Again, that's something that can take a bit. In the meantime, oh, here we are. It just happened here now. All right. So that's it pretty much. We have now connected our Mule VPC to the Transit Gateway in the other AWS region. Now the hard work begins. I'm not going into that now. You need to create the route tables, all the policies that you need to really get the data flowing between the Cloud Hub VPC and your AWS environment. We're not going to go into that. Also looking at site arranges, all that fun that you have when you're a networking guy. I'm personally not a networking guy. I learned a lot just by going through this demo as well. Learned a lot about networking and site arranges and et cetera, et cetera. But again, that's pretty much as a first step is what you would be doing, right? It probably took about 15 minutes. I hope not much more. So we did create a VPC in Cloud Hub. We used this to and fro between Cloud Hub and AWS to connect it to the Transit Gateway. And as you can see, it's fully self-serve, just to make sure that you have full admin rights for both the Cloud Hub environment and the AWS environment as well. Okay, are there any other questions here? So I get one from Daniel. Once Cloud Hub VPC is attached to Transit Gateway, can Cloud Hub VPC and VPC-A talk to each other, or do we need additional route table configuration? Exactly, yeah, that's what you need. I mean, that's the purpose of a Transit Gateway. It's a hub and spoke, so that data from Cloud Hub can flow and communicate with other VPCs, absolutely. But yes, you need to configure route tables and site arranges and all that in order for it to be safe. That's absolutely critical. Right, any other questions? No, if there's anything else, then please put it into the chat. I hope that was helpful. I'm going to post into the chat also the documentation for Transit Gateway. There's a few links available, and you can read up on that. If you need any sort of assistance, if you're a MuleSoft client, reach out to your friendly MuleSoft team, your account executive or customer success manager. That's the team that I'm in, the CS team. Or if you work with our services team, for example, then just reach out to them just to get a little bit more information, and also really so we can look at your specific environment and how you could benefit from that new capability. Okay, thanks everyone. And Adam.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, that was great. It obviously is getting into a different realm of networking and making sure that, you know, those options are all aligned from an AWS perspective and, you know, MuleSoft Anypoint platform and from a Cloud Hub perspective as well. But yeah, I know it is something that comes up quite a lot when you're sort of talking about, you know, how your VPCs connect to each other, and this is just another means of doing so in a more dynamic way as well. So yeah, appreciate that, Daniel. Now, moment of truth. Let me see if I can share my screen this time. All right, is everyone, Daniel, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it this time?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. Good thing about operating system upgrades. Okay, so what we're going to do now, first of all, I just wanted to thank again our two presenters for tonight. I think they were both fantastic. What we're going to do now is put your knowledge to the test, see if you were paying attention. We do have some giveaways and a bit of Mule swag that's available. So as usual, what I'll need to get everyone to do is jump onto kahoot.it. Either, it's probably better if you could do it on your mobile phone browser, so you can still watch the screen as we present. I'll shortly give you a game pin, and you feel free to log into that. Most important thing is use your real name, please. If you want to claim your prizes, yeah, your real name is what's going to be required. In terms of prizes, we have, as usual, a training voucher for the winner, which is always very well received. For second place, we have a hoodie, and third place is a Mule t-shirt. So yeah, best way to get some swag is through winning these prizes. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you haven't played Kahoot before, I sort of always take it for granted, but you have to have the correct answer. They're going to be multi-choice questions, and you also get more points if you are faster on the trigger. So if you get it correct and you're the quickest, you get more points, and whoever has the most points at the end obviously ends up on top. So without any further ado, bear with me a second. I'm going to kick this off. And feel free to join. We've got the game pin there and available. Let me turn this ridiculous music down. And as mentioned earlier, please use your real name. Yeah, we've got a couple of people coming in now. Now, I know we've got 58 attendees. So when we get closer to that number, we will commence. Good representation so far. All right, we've got 37, still climbing, 38. Give you a few more seconds to log in. I know some people have long names, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And I hope everyone was paying attention earlier. There will be some questions relating to the topics presented tonight. I think I even dropped an answer in that I probably shouldn't have, but anyway, let's see if you were paying attention from the get-go as well. All right, we've got 40. I'm pretty happy with that. 6:36, so let's get cracking. Fingers on the triggers, guys. The first one is a test question, just to see the format, see how it works. You can't get it wrong. Are you ready for this quiz? So this is just a warm-up. Feel free to answer. Yep, the answers are coming through. Fantastic. I in particular think it's probably the green one's the best answer. Let's just get going, mate. All right, so you can see there, they're all correct. Get no points for that one. That was very much just a warm-up, but hopefully now it makes sense how the format works and we can get into the real stuff. Okay, everyone's on 0. Okay, question 2. Who won the NRL Grand Final on Sunday night? As I mentioned earlier, there'll be a few sporting questions, sort of that time of year. If you follow football in Australia, I say football in a general term, not probably the correct version of the term when we talk about the world game. Sorry, Daniel and Carlos. Penrith. Yep, That is correct. They played the South Sydney Rabbitohs, pretty close battle, but they came up on top. Unfortunately, it wasn't the Storm. They lost in the prelim. Okay, Vivian on top. Fantastic. Good start. Lots of correct answers there. Question 3. How many VPN or network connections are included in a MuleSoft base subscription? The new terminology being network connections, as Daniel covered in his session. Correct answer is 4. So most of you got that correct. Yeah, you actually get 2 VPCs and 4 VPN connections or network connections now. Got a new leader, Pusha Nistala. Okay, great job. Question 4, which one is not an available option to connect a MuleSoft VPC to another AWS VPC or an on-premise environment? Which one is not? Daniel covered 3 of them that were. And there are some pretty wordy questions tonight, so they are quite long. Express route. That's right. I believe that's from Azure. Is that right, Daniel? I think.
Yeah, that's right. It's from Azure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he was hottest on the trigger. Jess K in the lead. Nathan is the highest climber as well. Okay, question 5. The design of the AWS Transit Gateway can be described as. Daniel used this term a few times during his presentation. So hopefully you're paying attention. Hub and spoke, and we all know that point-to-point is evil, so we won't go through that in any more detail, but most of you got that correct as well. I think it's going to come down to who's going to be the quickest tonight. Lots of correct answers, which is good. Everyone's paying attention and everyone wants the swag. Where was the AFL Grand Final played this year? We all know Melbourne won, the Demons. Great game. I purposefully didn't put any cities in this question, but the actual stadiums themselves. So again, another sporting question. Another football question. Optus Stadium over in Perth, it was. So most of you got that correct as well, which is good. But again, a bit different to a MuleSoft question. Chris M is on fire. Got an answer streak of 6. So let's see if we can knock Chris M off on top. Question 7. When did Mule 3.9 reach end of standard support? Andrew covered this one off. Might have been Carlos, actually, during the session earlier. Now, if anyone knows who that image is of, feel free to put it in the chat window as well. March 2021. Correct answer. Vivian hit the lead. Pretty close battle tonight. Lots of lead changes getting towards the end. When reevaluating the application to be upgraded and selecting an upgrade strategy, what are the 3 aspects to consider? Now, this is not only a long question, but they're long answers. So lucky we've got the 20 seconds for this one. Or maybe if you're a bit of a gambler, you might have just took a punt. Strategic direction, technology, and quality of service. Again, we're getting lots of correct answers, which is really good to see. All right, Vivian still in front. 2 to go. there are 5 key steps. What is step 4? The image is very helpful here because I couldn't fit it all into the question, unfortunately. So if you can remember back to Andrew's slide on this one, what is the 4th step in the process? Research alternative constructs. So not all the constructs are available, so research them. Vivian, still in front. It's going to be hard to take the lead back, but we have one question to go. And let's see who can take it. Due to COVID-19, what is the most locked down city in the world? I don't know if we should be celebrating that. Carlos, whoever holds that title, I don't know if it's a good thing. But if you've been paying attention to the news, it was announced this week. Yeah, I think everyone is across that, and we're probably sick of hearing about it. And sorry to end on such a negative note, but Melbourne is the correct answer. So, podium time. In 3rd position, VJ, congratulations. 2nd, Joshua Go, well done. And in 1st place, I think we know, Vivian, congratulations, well done. We've got some runners up there as well. Now, just gonna, not sure if someone else is taking a screenshot, but I'm gonna take one anyway. Well done, guys, and congratulations. We will get those prizes out to you. And yeah, thank you again to everyone that was able to join this evening. You know, we do value the community. We do value the members of the meetup. We know it's challenging, especially being in a lockdown environment, you know, trying to work from a virtual perspective and then still being able to join this after hours. We do appreciate it, and we hope that it was valuable. Please fill out the surveys that'll go out after the meetup. And yeah, once again, thank you to the speakers. Thank you to Rubicon, Red, and Daniel, and Carlos, as well as Juliana for putting that together, and also to Daniel for taking us through the Transit Gateway stuff. Anything else from the team before we sign off?
No, again, a big thank you from me as well. Awesome. Hope to see you all in December. Maybe we can do even an in-person meetup in December, or maybe early next year, but it's definitely on the cards, and one day we'll do it.
Sounds great. All right, thanks everybody. Enjoy your evening, and thanks again for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.